All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Wednesday, September 4th, and the Texas Longhorns are getting ready for a road trip to the Big House. The Texas Longhorns taking on a trip to Michigan, and it is going to be a heck of a game. I'm Tanner Carlson, along with Jake Jimerson here on All In Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. Again, give us a like, share, subscribe, do all the things. We are also heard where all podcasts can be found, whether that is Spotify or whatever. Go give us a listen, give us all the likes, give us all the clicks. We need it. We appreciate the viewership. Yeah, still in paradise. Jake, you're looking a little dim there. You getting enough sunlight over there, buddy boy? You getting some sun?
Yeah, this week's a little rough with the background contrast. It does make me feel a little bit pathetic with you in Key West, but hey, that's okay. Maybe I'll set up outside next time so there's at least the lovely view of Kansas City and
that beautiful Kansas City landscape that is so well known and beloved by all Americans, right?
I'll do it with the smoker in the background, and I'll have something on. Then you'll be a little bit jealous. Right now, I'll be the jealous one.
Yeah, he's not talking about, a hookah lounge or whatever. He actually is a barbecue pitmaster. I've deemed him a barbecue pitmaster. He's not quite there as the official title. But, Jake makes some mean barbecue. Now, he makes Kansas City barbecue. Is that right, Jake?
Whoa, no. I am in Kansas City, living here currently, but I am from Texas, and I make Texas-style barbecue, though I do dabble with some Kansas City pork. I love the way they do pork here, but no, I am still a Texas man, a Texas barbecue man through and through.
So I was at the airport, dude, and we stopped and grabbed a bite to eat. So again, the tab at an airport was over $100 for two people to eat, but I got a pulled pork, covered tater tot, smothered tater tots, pulled pork in Charlotte. Don't ever eat pulled pork in Charlotte if that is any indication is what their pulled pork feel. I mean, dude, it was like canned cat food. It was the worst thing I've ever eaten. Now, yes, it was also airport food, but it was also extremely overpriced. But dude, I don't want to crap on Charlotte or North Carolina barbecue or anything. All I know is it was a disaster. It's terrible. So if any indication of that is to be true for the entire state, just stay away from it. But there is Texas barbecue is unmatched in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, especially in the beef department.
Yeah. Austin has some great places. Franklin's is worldwide known.
Terry Black's.
Terry Black's
is my favorites.
Yeah, I love Terry Black's. Where I'm from, my neck of the woods, Belton, Texas, actually has one of the better barbecue spots in the entire state of Texas. Miller's is phenomenal. If you're ever in the Belton, Texas area, stop by Miller's. This is not an advertisement. This is free. This is just free plug. But yeah, no free advertisements from here on out, but Miller's, check them out. They're fantastic. All right, Jake, let's get into the big talk of the Big House for the big Texas Longhorns. What are some things that we are looking for? What does Texas need to do to win the game? And then let's play devil's advocate on the other side. And what's going to happen if Texas maybe doesn't come out with a victory?
Yeah, I mean, the first number one key, it should be written on the whiteboard all week: stop the run. If you stop the run, I do not think Michigan is going to be able to keep up with Texas as long as, Texas doesn't implode on themselves. I think Michigan looked very sloppy against Fresno State, but I expect to see a better Michigan week 2. But I think the key last year to trying to beat Michigan, which no one succeeded in, obviously, is stop the run. If you stop the run, and if you're able to have a little bit of a run game yourself, I think you're going to win that game handedly, I would say, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it also comes up with the line of scrimmage, right? And as most games do come down to the line of scrimmage, the thing that I think Texas and Michigan's bread and butter is winning that line of scrimmage, and they play that Big Ten style of football. They're going to put a fullback in there from time to time. They're going to play in 12 personnel. They're going to even put in maybe 13, 14 personnel in there as well. And they're really going to stack the box and try to establish that run. Now, the thing that kind of jumped out to me, yes, it was a very slow start for the Michigan Wolverines against Fresno State, but it's a lot easier to get up big for a team like the Texas Longhorns than it is for a team like Fresno State when they're coming into your house, especially after a somewhat maybe not preferred performance for the Michigan Wolverines a week ago against Fresno State, but going based on their rushing game, it was not Donovan Edwards was not the primary ball carrier, and he was also not their best runner. It was Khalil Mulligan's. Mulligan's
Mullings.
Mullings, sorry. My dyslexia is killing me over here. 15 carries, 92 yards, no touchdowns on the ground for Michigan. Now, that is a complete shock for a lot of Michigan fans, especially when you had Blake Corum set records for consecutive games with a touchdown run during his Michigan career a season ago. And so, trouble in paradise for Michigan. But, yeah, I do think it starts and ends with the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Michigan, Davis Warren actually ended up being they kind of ran a 2-quarterback system with Alex Orji coming in basically to only run the ball. He was 1 of 2 with 3 yards. And then he had 5 carries for 32 yards. But Davis Warren was the one throwing the football for the whole game. And he was 15 of 25, only 118 yards, a 4.7 average, which is pretty bad, but especially against Fresno, and then 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I do not think Texas should have an issue stopping them in the air. I think they probably saw a better receiver in week 1 than they'll see in week 2 in Terry Holton. But if you stop the run and, Donovan Edwards, you kind of mentioned he wasn't the key guy, but 11 carries for 27 yards. I'd be curious to go back and watch the plays where he ran the ball to see what was going on for there to be such a disparity between him and Khalil Mullings. We'll have to look up the pronunciation on that, but
Mullings seems
stopping
right.
the run. I think if you stop the run with Michigan, how are they going to score on you, especially on a team that's going to be much more talented, much more fast on defense in Texas as compared to Fresno State?
Now, the defense for Michigan did score a touchdown last week, and the run game did not score a touchdown. But the 2 offensive touchdowns for Michigan came on the offensive side or in the receiving side of the ball. But again, only 27 pass attempts compared to the 34 running attempts. So Michigan obviously still wants to establish their dominance on the ground. Now, on the defense side of the ball, their defense still looked like the Michigan Wolverines of last year. I mean, they looked right where they left off. Only allowed on 22 carries for Fresno State, only allowed 9 yards total on the ground. Now, Fresno State was able to air it out a little bit, which might bode well for Texas anyway. Mikey Keene was 22 of 36, 235 yards passing with 1 touchdown. He did throw 2 interceptions. However, one of those comes on the pick 6 for Michigan with that score. So, I think something that Texas is going to have to do is establish something of a ground game. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be 198 yards yards on the ground like it was against Colorado State. But I do think that number needs to be around the 80, 90, 100-yard range for the entire game for Texas to have success.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a game where establishing the run can be establishing it after you've established the pass game. I think this is a great game to go in with the game plan of we're going to use RPOs. We're going to use some quick passes, some intermediate passes to open up the run game. Then let that run game open up a deep shot or two, kind of like we saw against Alabama, really. I think this could be a very similar game plan to what we saw week 2 last year, maybe with some extra wrinkles brought in. I think Texas could go a little bit more if they can protect the quarterback. Empty sets. They've been very effective with empty sets at the end of last year. I believe Quinn in the last 5 games had a 76 completion percentage out of the empty set formation. And so I would like to see Texas attack this defense by trying to use RPOs in the pass game to set up the run. I think that'll make getting close to that 100-yard range, which I think should be the goal, a little bit more obtainable than if you just go out there and try to go right down Michigan's throat. I think you're just playing into what Michigan wants you to do.
That's a really good point, and I think you need to spread this Michigan team out as far sideline to sideline as you possibly can. You got to stretch them thin. If they're allowed to stay in the box, and you play Iowa football where you're playing two tight ends and a fullback, and they can have almost 9-10 guys in the box. That's where they succeed the best. That's where they like to really stop the run and get those big uglies down there and get the front that they have going. I do think that using your speed on the outside against their corners, that's your best matchup for Texas. And so establishing the passing game to then set up the run game, hopefully that backs off that coverage a little bit from the corners and safeties, pushes that defense a little bit more on their heels, and that's when you can hit them with Jadon Blue and a Trey Wisner attack.
Yeah, and that's going to be kind of to continue on. What do they need to do to win this game? Protect Quinn Ewers. I mean, that's going to be also the story of the game. If there's 4 or 5 sacks in this game, it's going to probably be an ugly offensive showing against Michigan, which luckily still might be able to win the game. But I think there are some ways that Texas can attack, but the 2 keys to be able to attack this Michigan defense in the end of the day is going to be to have some type of run game, and then to protect Quinn, to give him enough time to get the ball out, which can be helped with some quick passing game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Now, Jake, will we see a Michigan team that we saw in week 1, or are we going to see a remotivated, revamped Michigan team in week 2?
Revamped might be a little bit of a stretch. I do think this is not as good of a team as last year. I still think it's going to be very tough to win in the big house, but I think that we're going to see a different team. I think we're going to see a better team. I think the defense, they looked dominant in that game. They are the reason they won. But I do expect Michigan's offense to play a little bit better in week 2 and probably come out to look to prove a point, especially along the offensive line where they struggled against Fresno State, both in pass protection and in the run blocking game. They were really struggling against a Fresno State front that is obviously not going to be as good as the Texas front. But with that said, I expect them to be playing a little bit more motivated in this week 2 matchup.
And typically everybody gives Texas their best game. But Texas historically, I think, even whenever they've been outmatched in these types of big non-conference games to start the season off, whether you go back to the Tyron Swoops Notre Dame game, or you want to go to the USC game where Sam Ehlinger was making his first starts, or even against a Joe Burrow and company coming into town, future national championship LSU Tigers coming into town in Texas, giving them everything they had in all those games, even winning some of those games when Texas was down against an undermatched matchup against those bigger teams coming in. I think now Texas being the favorite, this kind of brings me back really to the Texas-Ohio State days, back with Vince Young and Lima Swede, and making those games really set off the trajectory for Texas to get the confidence to end up winning a national championship. I mean, these games are super important, but I think Michigan is going to come up and they're going to be much more motivated to play their best game. And their offensive line is going to get challenged all week in practice this week against that defensive line and from the coaching staff.
Yeah, it's ironic you mentioned that Texas-Ohio State in the national championship year. I think this could be a similar game in how it looks. I don't think Michigan is as good as that Ohio State team was, but I think it could be similar, whereas the fact that their defense is very good. It's going to be hard to move the ball on them. I think the offense is going to really struggle and probably struggle, close to the most that we've seen under Sarkisian. And I think it's going to have to be a defensive-led effort to win this game. If the defense can dominate like it looks like they should be able to possibly do against Michigan, I think Texas could win in a very uncharacteristic, low-scoring game.
No, I completely agree. And I think Texas is really going to have to – I think this is going to be a grinded-out game for Texas. It may not look pretty for the Longhorns a lot of the game. It's definitely not going to look pretty for Michigan, I don't think.
No, and kind of a side note, it's the first game for Quinn Ewers where he's going to have the in-helmet communication on the road. So it's going to be interesting to see how does getting the play in go. How, some of those smaller things that you typically take for granted, are they going to have to go to using some signs, which I don't know if you want to do that against Michigan.
Yeah, and Jake, let's go ahead. Another topic of discussion. What worries you for Texas in game this week against Michigan? Uh, I think one of those worries might be communication and the fact that the Big House is going to be rocking. Uh, Early kickoff game. What do you feel about early kickoffs? I hate kind of primetime matchups at this early kickoff time. It kind of takes away from the pageantry a little bit. I know the Big Ten likes to do the big noon kickoff, but it also might play in favor of Texas.
Yeah, I mean, night environment games are always just much different than games in the daytime for whatever reason that is. Probably because you get to drink all day if it's a night game. But I,
That's Jake.
as a
Let's not.
Texas fan, I'm glad this game is at 11 a.m. As a college football fan, I wish it was a night game. If
Yeah,
that makes
let's not
sense.
play around. We know darn well why Michigan fans want a chance to have this being a night game because they get to tailgate all day long and they get to fill their bodies with that beautiful liquid courage. And so I just think that this might play in favor of Texas in terms of the environment. I do think the Big House, they come right. They're used to noon games. However, you might get some guys that are a little asleep, a little kind of lethargic, starting off and kind of slow and warm ups, whatever. Still waking up early morning. But I again, as a college football fan, do I want this to be a night game? Absolutely, but it will be college game day there. Jake, is there any added pressure of it being on the national stage, or do you think these players are just already used to kind of being talked about as much as they are?
I think now Texas is just a focused program. If you look at some of the interviews after that Colorado State game with the players, it was immediately week 2 starts now. It wasn't let's go out and celebrate our win. It was week 2 starts now. My recovery, taking care of my body starts now to get ready for Michigan. I think this is a program that, the culture has changed from what it was before Sarkisian. And I think they're just focused on week 2. Of course, there is some pressure. When you have 120,000 fans screaming at you at the first snap, that's when the pressure is going to hit. But I think during the week, uh, I think Texas is just a program that is focused on winning every single game presented in front of them, regardless of who it is.
Yeah, and we mentioned that too. For your Sark mentioned that. I beg your pardon. Following the game, he just said, I just feel like this group of guys is the most close knit team that I've been a part of in a really long time. These guys love playing with each other. They love supporting each other. You saw Jaden Blue. He was the first one to congratulate Trey Wisner on the sideline whenever Trey got that first opening touchdown of the season. Gunnar Helm and Nye Black really have a great chemistry in terms of being friends on the football field. And you got to see whether it be Matthew Golden or Silas Bolden, whoever's scoring, Isaiah Bond, they're all supporting each other. This is, like you said, a very tight-knit group, and I don't think outside distractions are going to come in and infiltrate that.
No, this is, you hear Sarkisian say it over and over in interviews, culture, 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 culture. And that is what he has preached since day one. And just like you said, just seeing how the players celebrate for each other on the field, see Arch Manning out there
the team loves Arch
having a
Manning.
blast.
Dude, the team loves Arch Manning. When he scores or when he does something good, the team vibes off the crowd energy, giving him, that we had Tyreek Hill, for goodness sake, talking about the environment. And that's a whole nother thing that we haven't seen at Texas since national championship Vince Young days. You got celebrities on the sideline, man. You got Micah Parsons, yeah, and you got Tyreek Hill, and you have a crazy environment that is loud. Obviously, Matthew McConaughey has always been there, but you get new celebrities and athletes that are at Austin, Texas, at DKR, rooting and raving about the environment at Texas. I think that is a new added bonus of playing at Texas now, when Texas is at its peak, there's nothing like it in the entire country.
And a lot of credit to Chris Del Conte, the athletic director of Texas. As soon as he came, even though Texas football still wasn't doing that well when he first came to Texas, the game day environment completely changed. I remember being at the Texas USC game that was in Austin, and the environment was electric, and that was right after he took over. He really helped amplify Texas game day.
No, you're exactly right. And Jake, I do want to talk a little bit, switch gears slightly, before we kind of wrap up the Michigan conversation a little bit. I want to talk about the offensive line, what you saw from them at Colorado State, but also DJ Campbell getting named co-offensive lineman of the week in the SEC. Talk a little bit about his performance and the crucialness of Texas's offensive line playing well against that Michigan front.
Yeah, it was actually Cam Williams who
Cam
snagged
Williams, I'm
it.
sorry.
No,
My
you're
mistake,
fine.
Cam Williams.
You're on vacation. You have all the excuses.
I'm so ready to get to this pina colada behind me, dude. It's not even funny, dude.
No, Cam Williams, not his first start at right tackle. He started against K-State last year, and I believe he started one other game. But he had a great, both the tackles for Texas just look like arguably the best tackle group in the country. The interior offensive line, I kind of talked about it leading into Colorado State. I really wanted to see them dominate. I thought they had flashes of domination, but they also had some plays where the movement wasn't quite what I would like it to be, especially against a Colorado State. And that's probably my biggest area of concern going into this Michigan game is the interior offensive line just not being able to get anything going in the run game, not being able to protect Quinn Ewers. When that pressure comes from the inside, that's where you start to see Quinn struggle a little bit, and that passing completion percentage, the passer rating start to drop.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I do think that would spell disaster for Texas if that interior pressure is in Quinn's lap consistently and he's not able to comfortably run the offense the way he needs to be able to beat a defense like that.
And that's where you miss Baxter as well with that pass pro. He was your best pass pro back. Now you just kind of have Blue, and maybe you can motion a tight end into the backfield if things are really getting iffy. But that's where I think CJ Baxter is going to be missed a lot in this game. I think this is going to be the first game where you really start to feel the effect of, okay, we wish CJ Baxter was out there.
Because it's not right. It's not just his running ability. Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner have the running ability to be a starting running back. It's all the other things CJ Baxter brought to the table, like the pass pro, like making those reads with Quinn and having that communication. It is a missing piece that not a lot of fans think about when a running back goes down. Hey, Jake, let's go ahead. Let's turn our, let's go ahead and go back in time a little bit and live down memory lane, a nostalgia piece, if you will. Texas, Michigan, 2005, January 1st. Something happened that year and in that game. And it was a Texas victory over Michigan in California, Pasadena, 38-37. And what many deemed Vince Young's coming out party as a top Heisman candidate going into the next year, obviously won a national championship for Texas in that same Rose Bowl. I call it the VY Bowl for a reason. Talk about a great game. Vince Young was 16 of 28, 180 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, but that's not what his coming out party was. No. It was 21 carries, 192 yards rushing, and 4 rushing touchdowns for Vince Young that propelled the Longhorns over Michigan in that game. What we were just little youngsters, little whippersnappers. We didn't know what a podcast was at that point in time. When you're a little tiny Jacob, well, you've never been tiny, but a younger Jacob, what was going through your head at that moment whenever you're watching VY?
Just we were so spoiled then. Winning 10 games was really a disappointing year. You wanted to win 11, you wanted to win 12 back in those days. And I just remember thinking, like, this is the best college football quarterback I've ever seen. And he plays for Texas. And, he's a 5-star recruit out of Houston, and he could run, which was not something you really saw back then.
Right.
And the read option, Texas kind of was the first team to really make that at that top level, within the nation. And I still remember the 60-yard touchdown he had in that game. It was just, it's just electric. And it made me think that Texas football was always just going to be dominant. But as we both know, that was not the case for a little while. But hopefully we're back to that level.
Hey, in the words of Roy Williams, we are back. We still need the CK, but we're back, baby. We are back.
I think
That
you add
Michigan
the
team,
C if you win this game.
yeah. Oh, you do. Yeah. And that Michigan team had Chad Henne. He threw for 4 touchdowns, 227 yards through the air. Mike Hart, which was just a beast of a running backs. You had Braylon Edwards on that Michigan team. Just a really fun team. Even a Steve Breston ended up making a decent little career for himself in the NFL ranks. And talk about Texas, Aaron Ross was on that team. On defense, Ramonce Taylor was a running back. Cedric Benson was the primary ball carrier. Rest in peace, my guy. But yeah, just an absolutely stacked teams. Those two teams, Texas ends up finishing the year 11-1, on pace to be one of the best teams in the country the following year. It ends up being the best team in the country the following year.
Yeah, and that was a fun offensive line to watch as well in those years. I believe you had Casey Studdard up front. I mean, you had some guys who just absolutely were maulers and won the line of scrimmage in that Michigan game. Something that hopefully we'll see Saturday.
Yeah. And Jake, we kind of make the comparison. I think the reason I wanted to bring that game up a little bit was Texas beating Michigan the way they beat Michigan on a final second field goal, a field goal that, hey, very underrated. Those far angle kicks from like
in college are brutal.
They're brutal. They're brutal. So I think winning this game in the Big House is going to propel this team to heights that maybe we've only dreamed about with this team. It's going to be a statement game. You come out, you play well. I don't care if you win by 1 point. I don't care if you win by 30 points. It's going to change the direction of where this team is headed in terms of the potential and the amount of confidence that they're going to get going into the rest of this season.
Yeah, I mean, this is a set the tone for the season type game.
Sure.
If they go out and lose close, maybe you see them struggle a little bit in following weeks with a confidence hit. But I think if you see them win this game, you're going to see similar to last year, a team that just gets propelled with confidence that feels they can, win a national title this year if they win a game like this on the road. And that's why you schedule these big time non-conference games, especially now that you can afford to lose a game or two and still compete for a national title. I think scheduling these early season games like this is actually beneficial to your program because if you win, it's a great resume booster. If you lose, you're not out of it.
Yeah. And, that's a trend that I've seen really across the country this year is more big non-conference games being scheduled because I think other coaches and other athletic directors feel the same way as what you just mentioned going in with now an expanded playoff.
Yeah. And it's something the committee looks heavily at. I mean, if Texas had played Alabama A&M instead of Alabama in week 2 last year,
they don't get in.
They don't get in. They got in because they beat Michigan Alabama at Alabama. You could not leave them out of the playoffs with Alabama in the playoffs. And that
Absolutely.
was 100% the reason why Texas got in, over a Florida State or even Oregon. Over a team like Oregon.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Jake, that's going to wrap up the episode. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to do week 2 key matchups on the schedule throughout all of college football. We're not going to go through every single game. We're not going to give you an SEC schedule like we did last week, but we are going to look at some key matchups really throughout the entire college football landscape, and we're going to give our predictions on what those games might end up being. So for Jacob Jimerson, I'm Tanner Carlson. It has been an honor and a privilege. Like, share, subscribe, and hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.